I'm here because you organize this, and I find it fantastic that you do that, and that you try to engage again some kind of a festival appearance in architecture, where people talk and show their things and discuss it in a kind of condensed, say, week and matter. I think that's great, and don't stop doing that in the future. That pulls the attention maybe again a little bit to Milano, that has somehow lost its position in time at a certain moment, and that where it was drowned by students, millions of students, and somehow nothing came out of it in a way. And I'm happy that now here in this place with your initiatives, this appearance becomes stronger, because you have such a great, say, opportunities here in the city, using or misusing the design week, for instance, or using and misusing all, say, the classical components, and using and misusing also its funny position between antiquity and modernity. And that I do think from you I can expect maybe a comment to the north in the future, and I'm looking forward to that. Hey, what's next? Of course, this is referring to, as we discussed about Ponti's work. I never met him. It's a pity when it's one person that I would have liked to meet but certain things don't happen, and that because of his desire to design, to build, and to think. And that is so tonight I hope to express two of those components a little bit, or actually these three. So I will not talk about urbanism. I will talk about, say, the issue that maybe he has been addressing also so much, this desire of surfing on curiosity, and not to be too retro, as I would say, in that respect. This is a lecture that I am, say, kind of writing because of a next book that I would like to make, of course, and that in a way is a kind of startup for that, which is about time and not about space, in the best, say, Gideon tradition. It is, of course, has to deal with one of the, say, the prophets of our time in those days, and the smart prophets, and with his hilarious momentum. This was the Times advertisement of his death. Now, that is on one hand striking and also beautiful. It's horrendous and beautiful at the same moment. And with that kind of gut feeling, I think that's what architecture should be about. That on one hand, it's like emotional and beautiful. On the other hand, it's somehow striking. Exactly what you try to say. What is the edginess that we could do? Not everyone wants to do that. I mean, Peter Zumthor clearly wants to calm us down, and has an other kind of point of view than maybe this attempt that you can see in this one. But that's what we can discuss. That's what you should discuss this week. And having an opening act with Gilles Clément yesterday, I think that was a very political, interesting move that you did that with one of, say, the most human and professional landscape architects that I know. And I think that's already a kind of remarkable choice that you did that. Hey, I'm going to do this by referring, because what's next means that you did something, left something behind in that way. And what can that be? And this was the drop that we dropped this on the table at a certain moment. Excursions on Capacity, a book that was, say, a narrative on capacity. This capacity was observed by having this kind of pictures and films over the planet, where notating that our cities are growing despite that sometimes cities are shrinking. And that has to do with many, say, aspects, because on one hand we want to consume more, we need more, say, production places, we need even our forests become like part of our urban domain. I mean, the Mont Blanc is especially a city, I would say, instead of a piece of nature. And that was at that moment an observation that had to be somehow witnessed or to be measured as such. These measurement techniques, 10 years ago or 8 years ago, when was it? Was about, and there were different of them. And I mean, we could measure our activities in this kind of ecological footprint, for instance, where if we would behave and compensate our behavior as it exists, then we need already 4 Americas, and at that moment we need, or if we would like behave everyone like Americans, then we need really sincere construction to compensate that. That method somehow has become into, is there at the moment. Measuring through BREEAM, LEED, other kind of vehicles. Somehow we can measure our activities in that way better. Not Not that they are good or not that they are profound, and it needs still development. So it was advocating, and I think you were also discussing on that. What can architecture do in that way? What is it is almost like a device, a vehicle to measure that and to show not only the state of the art, but hopefully also to measure something like a pre-evaluation what the future can be. Because buildings are super slow. 7 years, 10 years we need to build them from the beginning of the project. So yeah, how much can I make in my life? Six buildings, one could say. But you need already to think about what that building could do and anticipate on that. And that. So I give you some elements that we did at that moment to notate architecture as a kind of active element. We gave them verbs, like the spanners. They span, and they use at that moment their way of their structure, and sometimes structure can do that. I'll give you an example. To span places, to open up our cities, open up our bodies, one could say, and to give therefore more space. Capacity is not only a flat thing or an element which you measure by FARs. It has to deal also with porosity of our cities. Some of your colleagues, he unfortunately died recently, has been exploring so much in the case, I think, in Venice at the moment. So what's next when we notated that? And I bring you to Rotterdam because we made this kind of, that's 10 years ago. So exactly this measures it. And we showed how that could happen. And I'm happy to show what happened last week in that way. And because it's a kind of emotional moment for some reasons that I will explain. So this is Rotterdam, and it used to be like that, and then on that red dot where the dam in the Rotte River has been made, there at a certain moment some people throw some stuff on it and flattened out that city. Rotterdam didn't make a decision to restore itself, no. It tried to invent and reinvent itself actually continuously. And that's why I love that city. I mean, there are buildings from the 50s, rough guys that somehow wanted to compete with Ponti, but didn't, of course, they were not that good. But on the other hand, Maaskant is my favorite Dutch architect in that way. And then afterwards, there came this kind of nostalgia of the 70s. Humanism came everywhere. And we made tree houses where people could live in trees again more. And it ended up in the urban renewal with silly buildings, etc. So Rotterdam is indeed a kind of incredible mishmash. And maybe in therefore even more contemporary than the American cities in a way, because it continues with this reinvention where the Americans sometimes seem to stop in its own eternity. So on this place, on the greatest plaza, the biggest, sorry, in Rotterdam, a plaza of 1.6 kilometer long and 100 meter wide, so you can really land with a plane in our city. At that moment, we tried to make a kind of scale jump and to say, can we build buildings and that spot to make that plaza somehow in a kind of relationship with Siena, as we said, and how to do that. So the client asked us to make a housing and the market hall, something like Miralles, you know, cute and with some colors, and that's it. And we said, this is the moment to advertise food production, good food in that way, especially in the Netherlands, which has not a very good tradition in the cuisine. So it could need at that moment some kind of update. So we said, why don't you just turn it up and twist it? And because then you have a good hall and you have more penthouses, so that to compensate this act. He said, okay, but they have no view. So we said, okay, let's then make this view. And they said, yes, nice, but it's too expensive, the structure, too much steel. Can we avoid steel? And then, okay, you use a Roman technique basically to do that. And then he said, maybe, but the lift doesn't fit. So it ended up with this shape. And then we started with Dutch technology. Dutch technology with social and lower middle class housing is that you make a tunnel out of steel, throw concrete on it, you pull the tunnel out, because it's a complete house, and put it on top. And that made it possible somehow that we could push it sometimes, this tunnel, 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meter, up till that they kiss the other side, and that this hug at that moment turns into this kind of, say, I mean, you have a nice reference here close by. And that we use that reference, but in a way a glass roof is easy to do. So can't we make really a good galleria that somehow is inhabited? That's at the moment in your galleria you can't live. There's only one mini hotel, and the highest expensive with butlers in that way, and so it misses that kind of urban life as such. So and you can do it. That's a nice thing, because in our houses we need 25 centimeters of concrete, and because of acoustical reasons. I don't want to hear you, is what it basically is. So but for structural reasons, I only need 14, 15 centimeters. So 10 centimeters only for that reason. Here, you can use that 10 centimeters to do this. So what happens with this housing? You have gratuitously, for free, a public space. Well, for free. So here is how it is. We clad the whole building with the tiles of the city so that it becomes more Rotterdam, and that in the end we concentrate, of course, on this space, and which is like a celebration of that. Hopefully about traders and about food, and we needed a kind of screen to show where the food would be. We used it in the beginning with Philips to say to make an LCD screen where you can say the food there is 100 euros or 5 euros there, or your son is lost and let him come, or you show pictures of the food, how it's growing. And the beauty, of course, is when you put people behind it. Then you can open up the screen, like in a very good James Dean film, where he lives behind the Coca-Cola advertisement, and you can look down and then say to your son, hey, come on, guy, bring the fish up, we need to cook. So it wants to be definitely pop, and it wants to use somehow architecture to make a monumentalism not only out of, say, museums, theaters, villas or expensive office buildings, but to use somehow also housing and market halls in the slipstream for that. And then other architects come in. I mean, we don't care, this is urbanism. So then you make a mini city out of that. So this is the process. What happened in these 10 years? We had to clean up the site, make another building there, put a school there, make a pond to make almost an iceberg building, and then the building comes up, and we started to construct this with this tunnel technique, this arch. In the meantime, the screen was too expensive by Philips. You know how Philips is, and and Samsung also didn't catch up. So we transformed it into a picture with a 3 GB image. Where we show basically not like Alice in Wonderland, basically lying in the grass, what happens on top, and there are glimpses of the future city into it. Nice detail, because we made Big City. You were referring to that in a way. That was forbidden to put it in because of certain people in Rotterdam could be offended by it. Amazing, not like a tolerant country that erased the Big City out of this picture. So it has been printed and burned into that, and then of course it turns into an environment where you live behind the flower, live behind the raspberry, and are part of that. And even the cleaning machine becomes like a theatrical piece where operas could be played now and be shown. The living in that screen, of course, is a device to avoid that this public space ever can be privatized, because people buying their apartments control that space basically, and turn it into an almost impossible situation with these windows as such. Of course, the windows have different relationships with the house. Here, this is the toilet, and from there you can sit and look at the market hall. And this is my favorite bedroom, where, say, the glass is a kind of pillow, so that you can wake up with a very beautiful dream or a nightmare, but that's for further discussion. We go further in the hall, this during construction, and you see more windows of that. And this is my favorite place where, say, my kids could play with Lego at that moment, and looking down 40 meters. So somehow, as you said, what is edginess in that way? Can that be done in a domestic world? Is a discussion which you have been facing also with your vertical gardens in a very beautiful manner as such, and it's there at that moment. These windows are on different places, even under and next to stairs, and turn it in a kind of collective device where we observe the market. And of course, in the end, we had to close it because because of different hygiene rules, new European rule, when you want to have open say markets for fish and for meat, and we made the thinnest wires, like a tennis racket basically, where they can go up and down in the wind, and but even that costed us almost like 3 months to span it, and but we can cut them away if it's not, if this market is not a success in that way, and then it's there. And then it becomes a kind of messenger in that way, and in its most simple manner. And it's like the most horizontal bended skyscraper in the Netherlands that you can see from different spots as such. And at that moment, it started to become during construction already a kind of a plaza, and where this advertisement of space, housing, and say and painting in this case, turn it into hopefully now into a market as such. So here are the days before the opening and how it became great. This is a nice bedroom. How it becomes part of it. People started to talk about it in that way, and that's a kind of surprising talking about what can be a messenger do. Come to Rotterdam. It was, it says, people went there to discuss it, and they were like thinking, well, this building would bring in more tourists to Rotterdam. Yeah, we need them in Rotterdam. You hate them sometimes, I understood. But and it would be like 50,000 extra. So there was like the rough guide was already explaining that due to this building and two others of colleagues, there became like you should go there. That's funny. If that happens with your buildings, then suddenly, wow, that's touchy in that way. And one cannot expect that as such. So we were quite happy that our queen came to open it last week, and that immediately then you enter. The word pop now definitely is part of it. So the word intellectualism is an intriguing, say, discussion point, especially in Italy, on what the relation that would be. So this is last week with our queen, and yeah, this is a very poetic. Cinderella is nothing with that act, and how could they invent to that? But as a side effect, and was actually that this started to happen as such, and people are taking over. I mean, architecture is nice, and you give birth to something, and then there it goes. But in this case, it is touching that it become now this kind of destination, and that architecture can kind of touch people more than I thought, and that leads indeed to say, yeah, within 5 days, 500,000 visitors. So we already beat it in that way, the expectations a little bit with that desire. And this is one of my friends, of course, because this is how the market should be. And the blood should go over the floor when you slaughter an ox. There should be flowers dripping everywhere, and it should not look like a Harrods food court or in that way, and still update itself. We learn from you and from Spain in that way, how you can do with it and deal with it. And we copy it in our manner, one could say. And as a kind of, maybe we enlarge a little bit the picture because you don't need it. And you will say this is stupid and this kind of thing. But it seems to help for the moment to export your knowledge to our domain. So what's next in that way? And I take you what's on our drawing boards at the moment in Amsterdam, and I take you to the smallest project that's coming at the raising from. It's there, and here on this island, the new Dutch tennis court will come, and it's so the first thing is making the screens and paint everything red. Is what we try to do, to advocate the beauty of tennis at that moment, and to stay away from the purple mood that some tennis courts are entering for a moment. So what to do then? How to make buildings around the center court and about the other courts. And so this is the first step to do. And we make here, restaurant, canteen, clubhouse as such that has a good view in it. and then started to yeah, in a way to use that span of this. I'm still in the chapters of spanners, huh? Do you know? And to span, say, here not only a tribune in it, and to manipulate that roof in such a way that it gets a double position. So it becomes the nicest couch of the Netherlands in that way, where indeed we can say look at each other and look at all the fields, and somehow have this feeling that you can have a relaxed, soft environment that's there. So here it's under construction at the moment, and how we gradually turn it into this kind of soft device that somehow wants to celebrate the Dutch tennis championships in say 6 months from now. So that's a nextness. Even a small project can say double its space. Even a tribune can become nicer and turn it into such a kind of public event. I continue with that, and is that in this case I go to the mixers, and we in those days we made this mixer. We stacked landscapes in order to make to give a better perspective on the capacity, and build that thing, and made, I think, one of the nicest spaces in our career still, that a forest can be a building, or that a building can be a forest as such. And that has been acknowledged in those days quite a lot. But what's next, and that's why I show it, because what's 10 years later, this is one of the monuments of Germany, and but due to the crisis in Hanover, the whole area is emptied out. You know, it looks like Nagasaki basically. And what can I show this? This is the state of the art of, say, what was a utopia and became dystopia. But maybe on the other hand, it has a kind of a beauty like any German loves ruins. Goethe is only about ruinism. So that this romanticism is kind of celebrated even in this way, with many birds, many hippies that squat this building at the moment. So what's next after that, the enterprise? And you know some of the projects where we stacked some program to make here, in this case, a collective public floating soccer field. And that turned it into a kind of operation that commented Madrid, where the mayor at that moment said, in his what nextness, you give me now not only a tower, but also a block. And so next door, we made this opening act of houses stacked on top of each other, where each of them has gardens in a collective way, and where you could look out anyways from this patio, this horror of the kind of the block enterprise of Southern Europe as such. And that makes then this kind of, even from a toilet, yes, this perspectives thinkable in that enterprise. The nice thing, this looks like that someone had did it before. Maybe it's not only Ponti that we have to celebrate, but also Le Corbusier, when he made a proposal for such a building that has not been built. So somehow, in a social housing, we somehow worked on it and tried to give him, in the end, a position. And I come back to that later. So what's next in that way? And this is nice, of course, of this week, or last week's, when the new president in Jakarta, yeah, we love him, clearly. And it's horrible to see how, say, these anti-democratic movements are going on. And how, but in that position, this project is taking shape, I'm happy to announce. And somehow I show this also to comment, not to show, to address a love-hate affair with Milano. Which is on one hand makes beautiful towers like Stefano's one, and on the other hand makes extrusions of stupidity on the current former Expo site. So there's what to do in this case when in Jakarta, the flattest city of the planet, it's a giant village. Kampungs are there in a very beautiful, sensitive manner, and that are partly being replaced by emerging high-rises because of the new metro system that comes there and that it needs. So I take you to that spot, where on this former money factory, the former Rupiah factory, where a new metro station is coming. And if you look to the surrounding, then you could see that this whole village, this area is surrounded by villages, by mini blocks, by an urban village-like. So we suggest at that moment to construct a tower here with Jurdi to make in that way a tower that is composed of its environment and turns it into an object. So what does it, and I go here to a film for a moment, because you can, what are the logics behind such a kind of stack attack in that way, such a kind of operation? So here you see Piruri, and in that way. That's the flat city. But here there's something. So I dive down. An emerging skyline and a lot of kampong. So the site, it needs some pavement, needs a connection with the metro, needs to keep some monuments and add a mosque. We dig it, put the parking in, and make a basement for the shopping center. Split the shops, split the retail on top and the restaurants, and split the entertainment zone by MGM. Split the houses, split the offices, and top it up with a hotel. Clad it, and cover it with forests. Because with that, we can make a kind of ventilation and avoid this open or this closed malls. And then it fits somehow in that way. It comes up. He wants to connect different neighborhoods. Here the cinemas. There the big cinema in that way. So let's go in. Because the issue, of course, is that somehow even the biggest monsters deserve identity and individualism. So you come in, and then you can look up, hey, that's my house, my neighborhood. Passing by the cinema complex, going into kind of Soho type environment. The Sawa building. Passing by Miami. Going into the conference ring. And top it up with the journey to the wedding chapel on top. So that's what next, after stacking and after... so what comes afterwards? And now I take you to a more fundamental chapter in this way. Because somehow, what I wanted to say with that is that with this kind of words, you can say that what is now an architect doing? Does he keep to himself? Do I don't surprise you in the future anymore? Do I go on with my agenda? Or how does it become larger? Some things you have to fulfill. And I need more time to prove certain kind of this kind of hypothesis that we share with each other. So I give you one example again about and then introducing and bringing you to the wider subject as such. We were a bit known for our hangers. And we hang elements to give more space actually on ground. That's a while ago. So what happened afterwards is what I would say. And you know maybe what in Suffolk, with this kind of landscape, super cute, where we were asked by Alain de Botton to make here one of his holiday homes. So these were the houses that were there. And the second week that I came back, they were away. I said, what is this? You make one of the most purest farm-like houses that you can do, and you get rid of them. Yeah, I want to have something new. Okay, but what do you want then, something new? Well, give me a barn. I said, man, are you crazy? Because do we have to fly in from the Netherlands, go 2-3 hours over on the stupid roundabouts in the UK, and then end up in this cute landscape? Yeah, no, but Prince Charles wants to have it. Because Prince Charles is the protector of this national park. I said, yeah, but is this... The good thing is that Alain wanted to have a house which was too big. The footprint didn't allow for it. So what we could do, we had to push it, and then at a certain moment, now it would fit the requirements of the national park. Now suddenly all the pigs and all the pheasants and all the rabbits can pass by, and it becomes like a beautiful object. And he said, yeah, but I can't do that. That's too expensive. So I said, okay. Then I dropped the thing. And yeah, but this I can't advertise for my company. The dropped farm. That is, well, yeah, there were more bombardments. Why can't you do that? And in the end, he said, okay, let's do it. So that's how it happened. So here you see the farm coming. Look, there it goes, blop, and there it goes back. And it makes this kind of space, say the best veranda of the UK. So it's invisible almost from the road because Prince Charles didn't want to see it. So you come there and it's mirrored completely, and you have 2 doors because Daddy comes at home at 7 o'clock and what shall I take in that way? Or you go into the kitchen, or you go into this couloir, and then you pass by all the bedrooms, and there are some things happening in the bedrooms. There is like our big sticks in that way. This is not MVRDV. This is like this is like British copycat, one could say. And then the barn evolves itself, and it turns it into a space where you indeed have like a carpets, like we do at the moment in the market hall. But then you can play with the carpets if you are in vertigo. You can see your son, and you go around it in that way to the house, and ultimately come into this kind of space. And then the balancing barn is there, with a space that is like the best, say, veranda of where rabbits can pass and where you can observe it in itself. So again, with 120 square meters, you can make a device that advocates not only a leisure building, because it's a bit like this, so it's a bit uncomfortable in that way, and wants to avoid that you fall too much asleep. And that was a philosophical answer, of course, to architecture and happiness of Alain, in that way, to have him somehow into that discussion. But it became also, and as you have seen, as an advertisement of being on the countryside again. So we were incredibly happy that Prince Charles, in the end, was visiting the place and had this dinner on that roof. So what's next then? And I bring you to the next hangar in Copenhagen, where this is the city, cute, and this was the silos. I just make it very brief for that, because they wanted to have in the silos housing. And that's very difficult, because then you have not so many windows that you can chop, so you get this kind of stupid houses, too narrow as such. So we said to the client, let's not make those houses, but let's hang them on the outside, so that you have a good lobby and a good view in that way. And so here you see them happening, how they turned into houses where indeed you can observe the city, and that even, say, IKEA furniture doesn't matter anymore. And you gave gratuitously like a Guggenheim museum to the owners in its very heart. So what's next after this hangar in that way? And I take you to the next example. That's this. This is 4 months ago. And I get this on my mobile, and what is someone doing? So we went there, and you see this emerging in Copenhagen, just 2 kilometers away of that. What do you do at that moment? You call your lawyer, yeah, Claire. Send a letter to the client, same client. And what is happening here? And look to the old contract that you have and discuss it. And this is a phenomenon which I think is interesting. The fact that copies are made over the planet in this cell. So we were wondering, and I'm not going to talk about the court case, but that is something that is now over the planet. These are articles of a person that say, hey, which is Zaha, in that way. And where we start to discuss also the price of originality in that way, at the same moment that you are confronted with replicas everywhere. And that, say, buildings, our building in Oslo, a colleague in Rotterdam, that we are family, one could say. Or this is a building that we make in Paris, and we look to our colleagues in Singapore. Or still, we made this in Milano. I have to show it today. And this was a design for one of the towers in Milano. You can see now what is constructing going on, where this dream was happening, and another colleague makes this in Bangkok at that moment. Or a gorgeous building in Basel, in Winy Maas, and say our project for the vertical village in Taipei. And I think this is an interesting case, because where the first one in Winy Maas is a one house, this one is urbanism as such. So I am happy that Expo made that, so that we can make the next step. And that is, I think, about what's next. Why can't we work with that? Because natural science, people, they refer endlessly to elements, and we are too authentic and in that way. So there were times where originality, and especially in Istanbul, it is not happening, or was not. There are new kind of ways of dealing with that, and more incredible. This is the picture that I dedicate to you in that way, and where others are very clever in on thinking about this relationship. These are current examples. This is the new Aboriginal Museum in Australia, and which is intriguing. So what's next? So we did an exercise in the Architecture d'aujourd'hui to talk about déjà vu in that way. And notate, for instance, that there are many architects that love a hole in the building. And which is nice, I think. So we share something. It's like the Siam movement. At the moment, we seemingly all want to have a hole in our building, but we do it differently. So please give me criticism on the holes. That's my question. How good are the holes? Is the question. There is already the pixel movement. That started in the 60s already in that way. And I think it's interesting to see. I love Montreal at that moment, but there is a lot of symmetry in like the buildings that were there. So currently, we can work with asymmetry, we can work with more intelligence on that. I always compare this process, say copy-paste is a working title, is like with track changes. You start with a text, and then here in this case this was for Sarkozy, then the president said no in that way. And I still love to show why he or she said no, and to analyze this improvement. So track changes, architecture, maybe we can work with that in the nearby future. So what's next? And now I take you to, of course, a building that we finished, a year ago. And I purposely want to show that, of course, in Italy, as you can understand. Schijndel, no one knows it. And it's my hometown. It's a village, 20,000 people, and here that somehow wanted to use me. This is Schijndel, and it's so ugly. It is like because of the bombardment of the Americans, and that ruined the place. So I was 18 years, and I wrote this letter to the mayor. I said, we should do something about it. I started education. I went to the landscape architecture school initially, and and it was very beautiful. He answered this letter. Yes, geachte heer, dear sir. I was super proud to get that letter from the mayor. Yes, it's a good idea. We are going to work on that idea to make something on that plaza, on that area, and we come back to you. That took 30 years, and in the meantime, we made some buildings, and the mayor wake up and like, yeah, maybe it's a good idea. So we were asked, what do you want to build there? And this is the old plan. This is the bombardment. You see here the old street, the bombardment, of course, modern times, bigger plazas. And we're talking about a village. Come on, we're not talking about a big place. So this was the initial, before the bombardment, then the Renovation Act. So what do you want to build? He asked me. Well, I said, and I looked to Milano. I said, I would like to make a tower. Because then Schijndel can say hello, and you can look to Brussels, you can look to Amsterdam, and immediately the whole Calimero complex is forgotten in that way. And so he started, yeah, good idea, and started to talk about it, and give to the alderman. We have the system in the Netherlands that when a mayor says yes, he gives it to the alderman, and then half a year later, a poor alderman. He was politically impossible to keep this project on, and there he had to go. So that's drama of architecture. So then we started to discuss. Okay, the mayor said, okay, last chance. You have to work now with all the politicians, all the political parties. And the Netherlands so Schijndel has 17 political parties. So we went, you have 6 weeks to make a solution that's politically covered. So how to do that? Every Thursday evening, you drive to Schijndel in darkness in the evening. It was in the middle of the winter, and with snow, etc. And with one light still going on, that's where we met with all these political parties. And you start to discuss. So what do you want? He said, should it be this? No. This? No. Yeah, that's okay. And the width, should it be this? No, this. And it's too thin. They can't earn money with it. Yeah, that's okay. And the height then, well, the same as the neighbor. That's and the roof, yeah, well. So what to do. This is so beautiful, because if you look then to the rest of Schijndel, and you look to all the buildings that are there, and so we start to analyze them and say what do they share, and we went through all the buildings that are there, 500, and this is an example. We photographed them and said, well, this is how it. This pixelization, make the measurements, and then compare it with everybody, and then you can do the calculated average in that way. Yeah? So, and we continue with that, with all its means, and then at a certain moment we found out that this is the average farm. And that's interesting, this drawing, because on one hand they want to do something that they know, and it's very Freudian, I would say, and on the other hand they want to enlarge it a little bit, one could say, because this is their desire. So they grow a little bit in time, I could say. So we said, why don't we do that literally then? And then you make doors with handles like here, and you get your farm, is what it is. Yeah, is that not too ironic, Mr. Maas? But, no, maybe it's good. A certain irony that helps to... and I appreciate that they went for the self-irony in that way. And that because I think self-criticism somehow and self-relativation is now that's a virtue, and especially here in Italy, sometimes where everything is so serious that this could be maybe a message to that. So that, okay, but now in classical materials, what is that then? Yeah, now it's straw, tiles, and bricks, and wood, and glass. Yeah, glass also. That's it. So we made this is the farm, and it's completely in glass, and how we made, and then it's there. So it is completely printed in the glass, burned in the average farm. It becomes like an object, and then of course the detail is very carefully to be made. Ventilation in a picture is like that, and you start to reflect the situation. Right? It's a kind of piece of memory. It costed us, in terms of printing and making the renders, almost like 5 months. To do that, because you have Triga guides to control. You have to rent farms in Auckland, in Toronto, and in Buenos Aires to get this done on time. So suddenly you think I'm making the thinnest building, the thinnest piece of architecture on the planet, and with 2 millimeters. And and on the other hand, it takes much more effort than to make such a ceiling. So there is, so you see the numbers. Of course, the interior is what counts, because suddenly it becomes like a place where you're dredged and surrounded by the farm, and it becomes and that you somehow cook in the farm or wash your hands next to the farm, and that kind of juxtaposition. But even interior architecture by different architects, I don't mind, because in a way this kind of farm saves it all and makes it into this kind of environment where you can, and then of course, yeah. This is the human scale, what you were talking about. And somehow it becomes kind of poetic as such in a way. Or even the shops, they deal with it and work with it. I mean, these puppets are easily, they deal with this kind of composition. Messages come through, all the neon is like orchestrated like that. And this is then the thinnest detail, to make windows that do that work in that way. And do that, and of course it's ecological. So it has, it's a BREEAM standard. You have to talk long about with BREEAM, but it filters the light. And this, I think, is, of course, the summary of the building. Between one and the other, it observes the village, it reflects on it, and it becomes a lantern in the evening to advocate its beauty. And Schijndel is so proud on these days. It took them a while, 30 years. And now, when a group of Japanese people last week came to Schijndel, because after the whole flooding, that to discuss what a building could be, a cultural building could be, thinking about history. And I think there's more, that we can deal much more with history than we think. And we can find ways to relativate that, to illustrate that, etc. So this, and so they were there, the whole, and the mayor was of course super proud. Yeah, he speaks only 3 words of English and no Japanese. And then the whole market was there, pointing at them. That is Schijndel. And now and that is how say this is what next. What is next after Schijndel? What can we do? So I take you to I take you to Amsterdam for the moment. Here, this is Amsterdam. This is there. major shopping street. Can you imagine? And they visit them, Milano, and they we want also something like that. And that is happening because the major shopping street in Amsterdam is a former housing area, and the PC Hoofdstraat that transformed gradually into this kind of mishmash of. But the shops want to be bigger. They want to have, like Omotesando or like this kind of places. That's what it should become. And especially because of the museums that are now there, there's an upgrade going on. So how to put that 3,000 square meter shops in this kind of cuteness is in a way what we are confronted. So we look to the old drawings, and because it's highly protected area, and these are the old drawings as they were. We draw them in a way what happened. The former architect dealt out with the municipality of Amsterdam this kind of architecture and this kind of enlargement. Oh my God, that's the problem. And you might talk, in Venice anyway, they talk too much about reinterpretation, and somehow they get lost in it. So we said, okay, we go back to that, we stretch it in that way, and we make a kind of like an envelope that we turn completely into glass. So every piece, every block, every wooden panel, every tile, every gutter is glass. And then suddenly you get a kind of ghost building that shows itself in that street in that way and becomes somehow poetic because of this. They're made in Italy. Everything is in Venice. They were produced. And now are shipped, all the thousands of blocks and elements are there. And it took us more than 3 years to work with this family in Venice to make that possible and to imagine an interior that maybe looks like that in the end. So what we try to do at the moment to discuss with the client to continue with that. That means that in the end the glass furniture could be there. In the end the glass toilets could be there. Also the neighbor, I want to look through him. So that give a kind of perspective with. And how to deal then with intimacy is then the question. So by dressing up in mirrors, like a good James Bond movie, then suddenly it becomes possible that it touches away from your breasts or your intimate parts. So here you see images of that element of that infinity that we are imagining, and here the perspective to the neighboring area as such. So this was our design and during the day and the evening, and then the municipality of Amsterdam said, no, we can't do that. What? No, it needs to be. We went to Schijndel. Yeah, the mayor went to. It's too ironic. So we need some bricks. So we had to calculate the amount of bricks in the area, and you see how many bricks we are confronted with. And in this case, when we translate it in complete bricks, we don't do it. We complete glass, impossible. So we negotiated out somehow the balance between the two, and let's say glass is turning into ceramics at that moment. That's the hardest part of the operation, because the glue is not the same. And so that is now happening at that moment. So you see how it will work into the shop. Here the tests, how the different glues are happening, how we do with emulsions, how we had to do endless tests in order to avoid bugglers to come in that way. And so in the end we have this product that somehow can manage that powers on itself. So that's what's next is. You can continue in this adventure. And what's then next? And I'm happy to show that soon this badass copy guide will come on the market. And of course we start with the biggest disclaimer ever made on the planet. Because how to do that in that way? And then there are many articles, people that we interviewed on this aspect in copying in architecture as such, where different examples can be made. We need to talk about law and ethics that way. And we talk about the patents issue that some of our ancestors were showing. We have to talk about strategies, how to deal with that, and about speed, because that's one of the most important elements in this matter in that way. And ultimately, there's an evolutionary concept to be imagined in this library that we engage. Yeah, and we can learn from China, of course, in this case. And then we can imagine new El Croquises. So with El Croquis, we make this series of possible El croquettes, as we call them. So this is the format that we have given to the students to work on it, and who is now improve Sejima in that way, improve, say this original in their subjects, make products for Sana at that moment, do great with Philippe Dujardin possibilities, discuss with Herzog and Dumeron about export, and of course our favorite project, that Saarine in the end will be doubled. That is that would have been the best answer in that competition. And then of course SimCity is about that, so let's go and deepen that even more. And but the rest I will not tell you, because that you will see in the next epoch. So to end in that way, I take you of course to the most theoretical example after this, and that's say that I closed that book of KM3, and sorry, that's my mobile here down. So what's indeed next? And that's writing indeed that KM4 about time. And that is based also on, say, a next step that we try to do in the Y Factory. Still you remember that building, and that the dean went out, and this was his place, and we cleaned that part and made a carpet, invited people also from you. 3 weeks later, there was this happening on the horizon. I went close, and that is my carpet, that is my department, and this is the inaugural speech at that moment. So students in our office, in tents, and making this building together with many professors. And here you see that happening. Pump up that roof in that way, and then start this advertisement to make a good talking place, and to put the professors underneath, and produce some of these kind of elements that I showed in the Biennale in Venice also. And then you invite, like you, people to talk with it. It is also a way, and then it comes to the subject. Because I do think that we have many universities, and all universities look a bit the same. And that's a pity. I think MIT should more concentrate on computer programs. And I have no clue about, Stefano, what you want to do here, but in that way, is it urbanism that you want to show? Do it manifestly. Or is it about green technology? Do it in its end. I just concentrate on future cities. And that's because I think we need not too many professors. It's better to have one professor and like 10 researchers that surround it than too many people that don't have any power. So then this is a production line where we do the visionary city. I'm not going into that, just this is what our calling, again, visions are needed. That range, and that's possible in the times when we become too solitary, when we only look to the internet, and then this could be then the architecture that can come out of it. We don't need any architecture anymore. The obsessive, say, research on the miniature, wallpaper and the zine don't look big. They only look to this kind of sizes and forget this in that matter, horrendous. So we have to use that matter in order, that small matter, to make it, to talk about the large elements. The word icon is, of course, a taboo, and that has to deal with the fact that this guy made too expensive elements, and that this one killed with his endless enterprise the budgets of all our museums and theaters in the planet, and that we are, as our generation, we are doomed to make small things in that way. It's over, guys. We need also to stand out. We need also to somehow to have certain kind of leadership. We need to make world wonders and that somehow dream about that future. And this is, of course, specifically addressed to your country, where the word re is endlessly in our domain. And also in the universities. Any sentence you have reformation, reformulation, re-evolution. The word re, if you can skip that in our studios for like just 2 hours, it will be already a relief in that way. So this is the Netherlands. This is what students then can do. Master, they investigate how much re there is in every country and how to deal with that in that way. And of course, this group studied the future, how much money is involved in all the dreams about the future, and that we in a way should deal with Steven Spielberg in the future to give him a better, say, background as such. And the future is then, say, an answer to Boulez in the end. Where the Boulez was an interior element. Let's explode it to the outside and make that mirror. And of course, the Y Factory had to deal with greenness. And we made 22 observations, because why 22? Yeah, there were 22 student groups. So that's, no completeness. I still love this group that studied the beauty of green buildings and explored the incredible ugliness of most of the BREEAM and LEED buildings on the planet, because they have add-ons only, because they are cliches, because they have almost no windows, because we cannot afford that anymore, and because they pay the rest of the money to a roof that you don't see. On the other hand, you have to study the paralyzing complexity as such. That is then, that culminate at the moment in this green city calculator. When these are all the laws of greenness on the planet at the moment, that somehow we need an Esperanto to talk between each other. We need a calculator that also involves the large scale, and also deals with the different climatic circumstances better. These are elements that come out of that kind of research, and that you then apply on what could be the greenest city. Well, it's super green, this thing, but no one will ever look at this proposal. So with a series of patents, we try to explore these dreams and existing patterns like this one, the crop rotator, in that way. And then, yes, you can make a green self-feeding city. And, or in this case, with the new kind of bacteria that are there, and they are now in the production, so that which glow when they have a certain kind of salt in the water. Now, Amsterdam would be beautiful if you do that. And or this one, which is going to be built now in Hong Kong, where a patent by a German professor from Braunschweig, who made this thing, is enlarged, is developed on a larger scale, and then turns it into this kind of perspectives. Wow, now Avatar is born again. And and the beauty that you architects can give to this operation is so good that we can accelerate Mr. Green enormously, so that in 10 years from now, I do hope that green is over, and that we can then discuss again about architecture in that way. So that's what I would like to propose as a what's nextness in that way. But there was more, because the book came out, and then, but you forgot the animals, some people said. So with the European Committee, we made now this calculation, how much cubic meter need a rabbit, and how much food the rabbit needs. And if you put that in a sequence, then you know this pyramid of, and what can we do then? So with the Design Academy, and one of my favorite places in Eindhoven, we try to make products at the moment to imagine in that calculator. So here, new kind of railways for Amsterdam, where some guys are waiting on them, so that in that way to make already this inhabitant thinkable. Or this product, the softest brick in the planet, full of holes, absorbs sound. First snow is falling every day, one could say, because you don't hear anything. And to clad then these buildings, and as a side effect you get this kind of animals then in our city. So what's next afterwards in that way? And I take you to the next example. Where is it? Because, and then I come to a conclusion, oh, don't worry, is that all these things deal somehow with this matter about porosity. And Bernardo, here I dedicate tonight this chapter to you, and that he answered porosity in another way than I do. He criticized this chapter a lot. So I will interview later Paula a little bit on this matter, and when the book comes out, more or less in March, on that. This is an attack on these monsters, and these monsters are like so stupid, because you come in, go there, that's it. And then there are architects that make this. This is incredible that you let yourself used for that. I think it's only because of money that you do it. So let's make an European operation with Lego. That's what we proposed, the opening act of the towers. And if you do that in different ways, every student makes another hypothesis. And he made films out of this. This is step by step. This tower opens itself as a pregnant woman to the world, and how much does that cost in a way? Or these splitters as such, that leads to how thin can they be made. Or these twisters that realizes balconies in different, say, kind of formats as such. Or these balls that create neighborhoods in this tower. Or this is a cactus is also a good one in that way to split it up. This was started with OMA, but we made it now 10 times better. And because students, they are better in that way, newer. And so everyone can make a sequence based on his or her love, one could say, or his suggestion. Yeah, he got a low note, don't worry. This is an alphabetic guy. And then you have this kind of sequences and this kind of, say, enterprises that we could study where and how much everything is costed. And it has been into Venice, this one. This kind of an army of towers that somehow was showed that this sequence of all these kind of elements. And still I love them because they have a certain kind of poeticness. I mean, even Solowit becomes alive again. Or this balls series that flatten out in a way, or this, say, stairs that this is wow. He beat our Milano Tower in that element, or this neighborhood element, and this is my favorite, of course. You can walk here. This is the best stair. Yeah, you have to twist it back, I know, because otherwise, boof, it falls down. But it's also the most polite tower. This is what we should have made here on your old Expo area, to say to the king that is now under construction what we should think about it, etc. So these are some of I mean, Frank Lloyd Wright is in. And so there are these sequences and this army of potentials. The nice thing that this was based on intuition. That was leading afterwards to what I call post-scripting, to give it a kind of sequential thought. So the next step was, of course, a pre-scripting. So in this case, exercise with stairs, we could, you know, all the stuff is no problem. How to do with that in a tower, and what are the logics behind it, and then this tower emerges. I mean, this is Escher. In a doable and buildable manner is what this student group was suggesting. So, and then they made landscapes also. This is with different. It started with the Expo, and then connect them in different manners. And then you get, when you have then also the parameters of structure in it, you get such a tower with the most beautiful grottos that are there, that sneak from one to the other, from the bottom to the top as such. And that makes even a better logic than the Milano Tower as we had before. And so you can continue with different logics to turn that into this pre-scripting exercise, into this kind of, yeah, what is this for towers? And then ship them around again in that way. So what's next in that way? And I take it now to urbanism, where you can also apply that kind of logics to that. This is urbanism. This is the Dutch way of doing it. This is Barcelona. This is the Soviets. And these are the Parisians. This is the reaction on that. And this is Hong Kong. So this is Manhattan. So different typologies that want to be transformed. So let's start with the same density as such. Let's give them good patios. And let's optimize the patios step by step to make them the perfect light and, say, balconies. Or in this case, to twist them as such and give another kind of patio life that becomes like bubbly because of certain kind of parameters that comes in. Or this splitting act. And ultimately leading to slabs that somehow with this manipulation become kissing slabs. Or this one, towers that split themselves and hug them in order to enlarge the number of balconies. Or this one that becomes the thinnest towers and they touch them, each other for stability reasons. A gorgeous new Manhattan could this be. Or if I go further and say do then a kind of hill-like topology that thins it and optimizes it out, I get almost like an atmospheric town with it. And in the end, of course, this, say, pumping up the porosity to a level that that New Babylon would be reimagined at that moment. Of course, we have to evaluate it on the numbers of voids, the numbers of terraces, the view distances, the increase of the area, the corner rooms, or how much sunlight will be hit on ground floor. And then you can say with that how much a normal courtyard and a new courtyard city could do. And you see how these different scorings then somehow is measured to this kind of performance. And we can do that for everybody, so that suddenly we know what improvement is, and that's what nextness can be somehow measured as such. And that's what is then mapped in the end with this kind of connotation map to compare all this. And then you produce them. together and make another exhibition out of it. Show them and show this, the beauty of this kind of, say, patios as such, better than any musharabia that we could imagine, or these kissing slabs, these bubbled clouds, or these towers that hug, or the splinter towers in the almost ephemeral ending with, say, this New Babylon version. So what's next afterwards? One thing. Students, I need for every model 3 students, 3 weeks of work. You cannot do that anymore, they told me. So this is the robot that we got from the Gravity filmmakers in Los Angeles, and that we program at the moment that the Lego can be adapted to that. So this is the student work, basically, with Grasshopper and Rhino in a very combination, you make that scripting considerable. So that is the knowledge, ultimately. And this is symbolical, of course, of the discussion of last weeks, where everybody is talking, if robotization goes on, well, how many jobs do we lose in this way? I am quite optimistic in that way. I want to research that in the next. But what's next? So currently, we have finished the book with also calculating how much it costs. So we do that on the base of this kind of steel structure, where we measure the deformation and say the amount of street to compensate that, and visualize that in 2 ways. And we measure then with any opening act how much steel that costs. And I will give you the results then later about that to make it more practical. Yeah, what is next after this? How to really conclude is say the issue when I brought you through this story. Where is my conclusion? There it is. So, final part before we go to the bar. And this is Barba Papa. And Barba Papa is maybe, well, my favorite project at the moment, to end up with that. And don't worry, I will also make Barba Mama, but that comes afterward. It is based on, different, institutes that work. So here you see the molecules, the CHO connections by Akzo Nobel, which make like a connection that can be by electricity can change. That's funny, because if you have millions of them, then I could do suddenly like a kind of rubber that becomes stiff, or not stiff again. I can make basins at that moment, or I can make water coming out. It is kind of, or I can make furniture everywhere. Where of course, the neighbor has a bump in that way, or I can make windows anyway. So this was the initial dream, and what came afterwards? We initially started to investigate. Say, what do we actually need in our homes? In that way, and we sleep, and then we raise, and then of course the bedroom can shrink. We have a shower, have a breakfast, and then go out, and the house can go away. And we can continue with that, of course, this calculation, also with the offices or with other domains. How much space do we really need per second? Is what this research was excavating, and will be shown soon in this book and this exhibition. So so this is the whole 24-hour cycle. But of course, it becomes interesting when we use our neighbors again. And what are they doing in that same moment? And how can we optimize in that case is what this kind of study is doing. This is not a proposal, don't worry. This is but I look at one moment in this film, which I love a lot, and let's say this moment. Ah, there it is. Did you see it? This one? You know, when you throw your kid in the bubble bath of IKEA and the other kids don't feel it because the balls dampen out the movement of that. So they don't cry at all in that moment. That is possible with this material. You just go a little bit away and your neighbor can pass by. This is, again, a very polite way of going further in this substance. So what was next after this calculation? We made a film with... where every student had 10 seconds to make a question, the questionnaires film. So it's based on Leni Riefenstahl, says beauty, so there's a man in this case, and the man sleeps. So how much space do I need? I wonder, I need a little bit like this, but that's actually odd. I have a nightmare, maybe I do something like that. And then the man wakes up. So that was and he needs some kind of space to breathe, to look to it. And the nice thing is also that the material pushes you up in a way, like Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times, so that you can start to walk, and then this film start to say, this fragment, how much space do I need in front of me? And when do I need that? So, and then I need, with this kind of acceleration, the space needs to be measured as such. And the echo, or the memory of the space, it needs to be addressed in that way. So, okay, how high should it be when I want to see the sky? Or what is claustrophobic? So these students investigate at the moment, or make the question, what are openings? How can this material, this CHO, how can it tear the way and then turn it into what kind of opening do I want? And with what kind of movement am I going to do that? Wow, if I can wake up like that every morning, then I beat Herzberger's lessons in architecture in that way. So then it continues. Every piece is a question, one could say, if it works. There it is, yeah. So here it goes. It takes a minute, I'm sorry for that, but it's because this is also nice. I want to meet my son, and how to do that. And then this moment, of course, is how to study that, how to roll it away, how to blend it in. Or this film, what is like showing how water can be like coming into it, into any place that we want. And the material becomes a carrier as such. And of course, then we have the possibility to jump any moment into what? Into like a pool that comes out of that. And where the water is kind of grasped. And it is, and you can swim to what direction, that also is thinkable. There's new skies are emerging. There's the sun coming in that moment. And of course, this is, I think, an important element. My son joins. And who is moving? It's like, in this case, it's like in a gym that you are running on that element. Okay, he goes to pee, so he has to go away. That's also fine. A very interesting P, but that's we'll come back to that later. So then, and you get this kind of space. Here, Zumthor makes his most beautiful shower. In that we can do that like with unzip. This is a project. This students now work with Dries van Noten to make a collection of dresses for this. So how to do that? Because where are your dresses? This is the worst part of the film. That's why I show it. Because, you pick out your suit, but that's not the issue. Of course, the material should come over you and should perform in that moment to what you want to do. So this also shows that some pieces of the film are not sublime enough according to me. So then we go further. We need breakfast, of course. And he's going to sit. So this, say the issue of that any ingredient drops from the ceiling and that somehow pieces warm up of that material is a question that we architects have to ask them to Axo Nobel in order to make them work in it. And that's what we can do. And then this kitchen you have to build, of course, that's clearly a good kitchen where things are boiled and you have a view and you consume it. And that's still part of the game. And then of course, the trash bin is, it sucks it away in the end. Of course, everything that we don't need. Okay, there it goes. So it is, and washes it in the meantime. Relax is what it says. And this is continuous. So calculating every element is what these students seem to ask in this. So this is a project of 4 months in that way. How they can. I will stop here because now the love affair begins, and I don't. So what do you next? So the Felt Room, together with Pastou, is like an example how to work with that material in that way. So please give me 5 seconds for finishing this, and you see how that comes out of that. How this test with felt can be done. Then we of course have to make analysis how to measure everything in that way. So you see the first element, how Muybridge measures all the movements, fades out, and we can do the mirror effect in order to understand how much I need to prolong in that way. So from one step to the other, from measuring the back to the front, is what this is going to do. We try to make the smallest piece, and you see here the magic carpet. This morning a discussion with Vitra to make that possible now. So here 2 students basically work on that, and in the end they will be rich, because this is what their dream is about. You have your thing, and your carpet turned into a bench, into a couch, into a chair, anything you would like to have. on the spot, just 2 by 2 meters. A laminate of filth and chicken wire, programmable chicken wire, is what is the coming half year will be the prototype over there. And then we go, of course, and this is done with the University of Stockholm to make it on the smallest spot, the talking napkins as such. And that wants to say, to test how how you can do that interactively in different ways. So here you see, for instance, 2 talking napkins in that way. I touch him, he reacts, is what it wants to do. And that is, so there are many elements to make that kind of direction. Or here the soft wall that is coming up, and that is somehow try to make, like to put that in the kind of vertical area. So you see this quite recent in that way. So these are some samples of the motion. So you can hug with your walls, basically, and they become like soft. And they turn into kind of talking devices, as I can see in this, say, film. So there are many ways of, say, getting these things move. So sound is one of the elements. So this is one of the specs of the installation. This is like a detail of that. So it's very stupid technology for this moment. So here you see the wallpapers. Hello. And the wall reacts. So it works. This is what I say. So what's next? I hope to show you today, because like a sequential thought. Sequences are not bad. A lot of people talk in terms of clouds. But on the other hand, we have to build in that way a rhetoric. So with every maximization, it reveals a next step. And with that, say, observation, this sinusoid of research, I hope to give you a contribution to your beautiful building and your beautiful celebration. Thank you very much for your attention.